So there's a lot of talk these days about equity. So we should ask the question, is equity a biblical concept that we should champion as Christians? And of course, words here can be slippery, but what's often meant by that term is unless there's an equal outcome, you have some form of injustice that has occurred. And so Ibram X. Kendi, one of the best-selling thinkers behind today's social justice B movement, he just states it explicitly, where he says, when I see a disparity, I see racism. Robin DiAngelo, author of the best-selling White Fragility, says the same thing. She couches it like this. She says, when you look at any disparity, the question is not whether racism is there. The question is, how is racism being expressed there? Now, let me be clear. There are unequal outcomes that are the result of sinful discrimination. That's a hard fact of history. If you look at, obviously, slavery, there were very different outcomes being experienced by black and white image bearers as the result of that sin that had been baked into the system of the antebellum South. If you look at Jim Crow segregation, very disparate outcomes experienced as a direct result of racism. If you look at redlining, which said, hey, let's take out a map and say with our big red marker where blacks can and can't buy real estate, then clearly you're going to see different outcomes as a result of that racial sin that was baked into the system of redlining. If you look at the GI Bill, with veterans coming back and saying, hey, you can get a great home loan if and only if you don't have too much melanin in your skin cells. So there are disparate outcomes that are the result of sinful discrimination. But there are also many disparate outcomes that have very little, if nothing, to do with sinful discrimination. Let me give a few quick examples. Take birthday candles. How many candles are on a birthday cake? The average Japanese American is over 50 years old. That's the median age for Japanese Americans. The average age for a Hispanic American is in the lower 20s. So looking at that, what I call an undamning fact, there's no sin involved here. Based on that basic difference, how likely is it that Japanese Americans and Hispanic Americans are going to experience equal economic outcomes, especially when a lot of the most high-paying, high-caliber jobs require decades of experience? So you will see disparities that in that case won't have anything to do with any kind of sin or any kind of system that needs to be overthrown. Or consider the disparity with calendars. Malcolm Gladwell has done a lot of work on this, that if you look at the NHL, there's a huge disparity of hockey pros born January, February, and March, with a lot fewer hockey pros born November, December. And as he unpacks this, he shows that when they're youngsters, hitting the ice for the first time, and starting to, the coaches are choosing who's going to get passed on to the more elite club teams with better coaching and more practice hours. That if I'm a 7-year-old born in January, going toe-to-toe with a 7-year-old born in December, I'm not just older by 11 months, I'm better at hockey because I've had 11 more months of physical development. So here you have a huge disparity in the NHL, which by the way is even more pronounced in Major League Baseball and professional soccer. That has nothing to do with any kind of sinful discrimination. 22 of the 29 astronauts in the original Apollo missions were firstborn. People living in the U.S. experience 90% of the world's tornadoes. Asians are underrepresented in the NHL, in the NBA, in Major League Baseball. Women are overrepresented in the healthcare industry and education, in attaining advanced degrees. Men make up the overwhelming constituency of people who like golf and bricklaying and signing up for the army. So there's all these disparities. This one blows my mind. Jewish image bearers of God. Jewish image bearers of God are less than 1% of the world's population. Less than 1%. Yet they receive 22% of the Nobel Prizes in chemistry, 32% of Nobel Prizes in medicine, and 32% of those in physics. Those are astounding numbers. Now, does that mean the Nobel Prize system is guilty of Jewish supremacy because the outcomes are disparate and they're pushing down other ethnicities? No. Different lifestyle choices are going to yield different outcomes. And so the problem is, once we try to level everything out under the banner of social justice, marketed as equity, we often turn into totalitarians, where the only way now to guarantee equal outcomes is to force everybody to choose the same. So in a very deep sense, today's quest for equity is deeply incompatible with the biblical approach to justice.